StrayAllDay.com.
Why smart people still don't execute. That's the topic here today. Some of you are really smart. I know I have some very smart people in my audience. It has been said that podcast listeners, as opposed to social media scrollers, YouTube viewers, etc., that podcast listeners trend, and this is not, I'm not joking about this, they trend in terms of higher intelligence. They tend to be more highly educated. They tend to be deeper into their professional careers, and they tend to be higher earners. People who actually listen to podcasts actively, those numbers are higher than those same metrics are higher than people who scroll on places like TikTok or even watch YouTube videos. So I know if you're listening to this, you're a very smart individual. And my audience is much heavier on the audio only platforms such as Apple and Spotify than it is on a platform such as YouTube. So it makes perfect sense. All the smart people, I got more smart people listening to me on the audio platforms than watch me on YouTube. But shout out to those of you watching this video on YouTube. Now, most of you are really smart individuals. One interesting thing amongst many others that I find when dealing with really smart people, and I know a whole lot of really smart people, these are people who are generally college educated, people who read books, people who listen to podcasts, and specifically the podcasts like the Work on Your Game Masterclass, like this one right here. And they may sometimes work in intellectual property. They work in businesses that require you to have some level of your own intelligence, meaning you're not just painting by numbers and following the rules of the job, but you have to actually be smart at something in order to have the career or job that you have, which again describes many of you, many members of Work on Your Game University as well. So I know I got a lot of smart people listening. That one interesting thing I find with smart people like you is that they are sometimes the hardest to move to action and the slowest to finally take action, interestingly enough. So today we're going to talk about this complex juxtaposition, because you would think the smarter somebody is, then the faster they'll go do stuff and get things done. They get more things done than everybody. But what I found is sometimes is the exact opposite of what you would expect. So we're going to examine why this is, how it happens, and if possible, let's see if we can solve the problem. Can we do something about this? I'm good at solving problems. Let's get to it. Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is why smart people still don't execute. Number one, the smarter you are, or at least the smarter you think you are, usually the more you know, right? When you're smart, that means you know a lot of stuff. And the knowledge sometimes disempowers you just as much as it empowers you. Many of you who are listening to this have fallen victim to this, that your knowledge, your intellect, your information that you have gathered and acquired actually slows you down more than it speeds you up. All of you are familiar with the phrase that knowledge is power. Everyone's heard that before, right? That's the reason why many of you went and acquired a whole bunch of knowledge. A lot of you are college degree holders. Why? Because knowledge is power. That's maybe not the only reason, but that's one of the reasons why you got it. Most people believe this term, and you should believe this term. Knowledge can be power. In general, knowledge is power. In general, it's a true statement. The more things you know, the more potential power you have to get things done. When you don't know anything, it's hard to get anything done because you simply don't know what to do with your available resources. You can have all the energy in the world, you don't know what you're doing, then you could still end up failing despite the fact you have a ton of energy, a ton of time, and a ton of access. What do you do with it? You don't know. You don't know anything. All right, so I would prefer that you be smart than to be stupid. Okay? Most of the people I work with are really smart people. I don't generally work with too many stupid people. Now, all that said, there's a flip side to this intelligence that you have acquired. And that is they can also be very disempowering, meaning even though, let's say, for example, even though I have no experience in the sport of golf, we got any golfers listening to this? I know we have some golfers. I've heard that an experienced golfer often makes more mistakes than an inexperienced golfer. Now, that doesn't mean somebody like myself. I'm talking someone who knows how to golf, two people who know how to golf, one of them who has 30 years of experience playing golf, another one who has only, let's say, 2 years of experience playing golf. But they both know actually how to play. I don't know how to play golf. I understand the rules, but I mean actually hitting the ball, looking like I know what I'm doing, I'm not that. So someone who's been playing for 2 years, and then someone who's playing for 50, the person who's been playing for, let's say, 30 years, not 50. Someone who's been playing for 30 years will make more mistakes than the person who's been playing for 2 years, and you would think it'd be the opposite. You would think the more youthful person will make more mistakes. So why is it? Why is it that the experienced golfer makes more mistakes? Any of you who actually plays golf, you already know the answer to the question. Because the experienced golfer has a ton of knowledge built up in his head of all the ways he could possibly mess up. And that knowledge leads to him, the experienced golfer, getting in his own way and messing up because he already knows how he could mess up. Because you know how you can mess up, the thoughts in your subconscious mind of messing up and the nightmares that you have in your head about those bad shots that you hit years ago at some tournament that you almost won, they come creeping into your head when you're about to take a pivotal shot. Whereas the golfer who's only been playing for 2 years doesn't have those experiences. Therefore, his ignorance is actually an advantage because he's not worried about messing up because he doesn't know what messing up looks or feels like. You know exactly what it looks and feels like because you've done it a bunch of times. So your knowledge actually holds you back and it slows you down. I remember when Floyd Mayweather, the boxer, was about to box Manny Pacquiao in that big fight that got built up for many years before it actually happened. And Floyd, I watched all of Floyd's fights many times over. I watched that fight many times over. Actually, I'm about to rewatch it again today, as a matter of fact. Floyd talked leading up to that fight. People are saying, well, why do you think you're going to win? You know how in boxing they hype up the fight and both fighters just do a whole lot of shit talking just to hype up the event so people buy tickets and pay-per-views, etc. Floyd said, well, the thing is, Manny Pacquiao has been beaten before. Manny Pacquiao has lost boxing matches before. And that means Manny Pacquiao knows what it feels like to lose. He also knows what it feels like to get knocked out because he had been knocked out before. Manny Pacquiao also knows what it feels like to get knocked down by a punch because he's had all those things happen to him in his career. Thing is, me, Floyd Mayweather, I've never had any of those things happen to me. So Manny knows what it feels like to lose. So in some aspect of his mind, this is Floyd talking, in some aspect of Manny's mind, he has a thought about losing because he has seen it in his own life. I have no thoughts about losing because I have never experienced the phenomenon of losing. And this was Floyd. I mean, this, again, he was talking up the fight, but at the same time, he was 100% correct. This is a true thing. So the ignorance actually is an asset. Ignorance at times is an asset, folks, because you have no fear of the possible pitfall because you have never seen the pitfall. Biggest challenge a bunch of you smart people have is that all that knowledge you have actually gets in your way more than it's helping you. Good news is, I'm gonna tell you how to fix it. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is why smart people still don't execute. Number 2, the key to wisdom, and wisdom exists on a higher plane than knowledge. Wisdom is about picking and choosing amongst your knowledge, not just having it. Knowledge and information do not use the same, it doesn't access the same aspects of the brain as wisdom does, is that understanding and knowing which knowledge and information to use and which knowledge and information not to use at certain times in certain contexts and why or why not this makes sense. That's what knowledge is about. Which information should I use now? Which information should I not use now? Why? And then actually put it into work. That's what wisdom means. You see, the wise person doesn't tell you everything that they know. The wise person looks amongst all the things that they know. They go through their mental Rolodex of information when they are presented with a challenge, and they pick the right information for the right reason and the right amount of it in the right context, and that's what they use, not everything that they know. So if you just throw everything that you know in an issue, the problem is, everybody, is that we have access to too much information. See, if you had to throw all the information that you have or that you have access to at every problem that you face, you would never solve a problem because you would spend too much time going through all the information to even know where to start. You got too much information to choose amongst. How do you even decide what to do? Well, the answer is you never would. You would never decide what to do because you have access to too much information. This is the reason why wisdom matters the way it does. The reason why wisdom matters more than accumulation of information. These days you can accumulate information very easily. All right, go to a library. Public libraries are free. How many books are there in a library? 10,000? All right, do you have enough time to consume all that information? No. When you go to a library, what are you looking for? A specific book on a specific subject, then you turn to a specific page and you get the specific piece of information that you want. These days, you usually don't go to a library. Many of you have never been to a library. Most of you ain't been in a library in 10 years. But what you can do is you can go on the internet, you can go on Google, you can go to some AI chatbot, you can ask a specific question and get a specific answer on a specific piece of information. So you can pick and choose the information that you need. You can micro learn information instead of having to macro consume all the information, then only have 10% of it that you actually use in life. This is a good description of the American educational system and the reason why education as it is presently constructed in America is being devalued, and it should be devalued because it's not teaching you wisdom, it's teaching you accumulation of information uselessly. So wisdom is all about how do you have the right information to use in the right ways and in the right context, and then how do you apply it also? That's also a part of wisdom. How do you apply the information? Biggest challenge many people have when they are seeking information or knowledge or what some people may call intelligence is that some people, some of you listening to this, you are guilty of this. You have this false idea that the more you gather, the more empowered you will be. This is a false idea. Gathering more information does not further empower you. Gathering more information does not further empower you. Often gathering more information slows you down even more because now you have more material you must sift through to find the useful parts. The more material you gather, the more stuff you got to sift through to find what do I actually need here? What do I actually have to do here? What's actually going to help me get to where I want to go? This is the difference between going to college and going to trade school. See, there's a bunch of people listening to this right here who went to college. You have a degree, at least a 4-year degree. And then after you got that 4-year degree, you still didn't quite know what you were doing. You were not fully equipped for any particular career or vocation, even though you have a 4-year degree that allegedly qualifies you to do pretty much anything because it proves how smart you are because you got a degree. Whereas someone who went to trade school and had to spend a fraction of the time that you spent in college and had to gather a fraction of the information that you had to gather and regurgitate in order to pass the test, they are fully equipped to do a specific job. They know exactly how to do it and they can start working on day one. You get a job coming out of college and you still had to be trained from the ground up at the job that you get, even though you got a college degree. Isn't that crazy? I see that as crazy. I've told you all this anecdote a few times. My sister went to an Ivy League college. She graduated 4 years from an Ivy League college. She went on to get later on advanced degrees, but when she got her 4-year degree, she went and got a job as a investment banker, and she didn't stay in the industry long, but she went and got a job as an investment banker. And I asked her, when you got hired at UBS, did they expect that you had a certain level of knowledge? I mean, because they hired you because you had this degree from this Ivy League college. And she said, no, they trained us as if we knew absolutely nothing. I'm like, I didn't say this to her, but I'm thinking to myself, well, what the hell do you go to college for if they're going to train you as if you know absolutely nothing? Couldn't you got this job when you were 18? You went to college and they still train you the exact same way? What was that 4 years for? Anyway, I have many times trashed the American educational system, and today's not the day to do it fully, but I had to touch on this because the educational system we have here in America permeates outside of the 4 walls of university lecture halls. It goes into the way that we talk and the way that we think about intellect, knowledge, information, and being smart. Is, oh, did you go to school? Did you graduate? You got a degree? We look at that to judge how smart we think a person is, right? Especially people who have degrees. They tend to look at other people who have degrees as if, yeah, you're just as smart as me. And if you don't have one, you're not as smart as me. That's a false frame, folks. And I'm saying this as a person with a degree. So again, the more information you gather does not necessarily make you more empowered. This is not at all true. If you want a clear example that applies in your own life, look at the handheld device you have within arm's reach 24 hours a day, known as your smartphone. Now, everybody has one, right? Some of you had 2. Through that device, you have access to more knowledge, more information, damn near instantly and virtually for free than your great-grandparents had access to in their entire lives, even if they lived to be 100 years old. Their entire lives put together, they couldn't access as much information as you can access within 30 seconds at no charge, without getting up from your seat. Now, let me ask you a question. Being that you have so much more information and so much more easy to access, and you don't have to give any effort to get it, let me ask you. So I would say if you had to multiply how much information you can access now in 2025 when I'm recording this, as a back to, we can go back 50 years, 1975, that let's say your parents or your great-grandparents or your grandparents could access how much information they could access when they were the age that you are right now. I would say we today have probably 1,000 times more and easier access to information than they had in 1975. Would you agree? About 1,000x. Is that a good estimate? It's probably a lot more than that, but let's just say 1,000x. Okay. If we settle on 1,000x, we can settle on 100x. We can settle on 10x. Question. Are we as human beings today, I don't mean me and you, but just human beings in general, are we 10 times or 100 times or 1,000 times smarter or better than people who were alive in 1975? I would say no. I would say we're actually dumber. We're dumber. We're lazier. We are less capable. We have less initiative, and we are less effective. I think we are less effective as a whole. I don't mean all of humanity. I mean, as a whole, we are actually worse, I believe. Now, why do I believe that we're worse? Why would I make that case? Because life has gotten a whole lot better. We got a lot more technology, et cetera, et cetera. So why would I make the case that we're worse? And again, I'm talking as a whole. I'm not saying individual people. There are some individual geniuses out there. Some of you listen to this. We're worse as a whole because life has been made easier. And when life is made easier, people tend to get lazier just by rule. Why? Because you don't have to give as much effort to succeed and survive in the world in 2025 as you had to give in 1975. 1975, you had to actually fucking do something to be successful. These days, you don't have to do as much to be successful. You want to be a successful entrepreneur today, successful. Let's just say you made your first $1,000. You don't have to really provide much substance. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to shake any hands. You don't have to do anything that requires real hard effort to make your first $1,000 as an entrepreneur today. In 1975, you had to do a whole lot to make your first $1,000. And you had to go on a hole financially in order to get in a position to make the first $1,000 of revenue, let alone profit. These days, you could do it from your couch, streaming on TikTok, doing a whole bunch of bullshit and dances and entertainment shenanigans and make $1,000 providing no actual substance and no actual value. It's a lot easier to get the same result, which means people get worse. Do you understand this? So since we have access to so much information, why have we not just become these superhuman beings who are super producers of advancement, given that we have access to so much info? Because info ain't the answer. That's why. There are individuals who do this, but shouldn't all of society be doing it? Again, all of us got the smartphones. All right? All of us have Wi-Fi. The more knowledge we pile onto ourselves, the dumber we become, the stupider we become, because we don't know where to begin, which leads to my very next point. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is why smart people still don't execute, because all of us are supposed to be smart. I mean, we literally have a device called a smartphone. It's with you 24 hours a day. So by proxy, you should be really, really smart because the phone is smart. Number 3, you must be choosy with your intelligence and knowledge. This is the key to executing and actually getting things done. The key to executing and getting things done is being choosy with your intelligence and being choosy with your knowledge. How and when and where you use it. By being choosy, I mean choosing exactly which knowledge information you will access and take advantage of and use right now, and then ignore all the rest. And when I say ignore, I do literally mean ignore the rest of the information that you know. Because the more things you're thinking about while you're supposed to be executing, the slower you're going to move. When I was in my basketball days, I would have a lot of athletes come to me, and athletes in different sports. I have a lot of athletes from all different sports who would come to me because I was talking about mindset in general as it could apply to sports. So it doesn't matter what sport you were playing. And I would often get the question, Dre, what should I be thinking about, or how should I be thinking during the competition, during the game, during the performance? And people can still ask this question when it comes to business performance. Let's say you do a sales presentation, or you have sales calls, or you're a public speaker. How should I be thinking during the presentation? The answer is that's the wrong question. You shouldn't be thinking at all. There's no thinking during the performance. I'm playing a game of basketball. I'm not thinking at all. I'm not thinking about my moves. I'm not thinking about my opponent. I'm not thinking at all. All I'm doing is letting my instincts take over because I've already trained my instincts in practice. It's the same thing if you're in a swimming pool, same thing if you're in a boxing ring, same thing if you're on a stage giving a speech, same thing if you're in a boardroom giving a presentation. You don't have to think about anything. The thinking has already been done. That was the preparation work. Hallmark of a professional is preparation, ladies and gentlemen. There's no thinking to be done. So the height of execution, ladies and gentlemen, is choosing much information or knowledge you need to access, training yourself on it, preparing yourself to use it, and then when it's time to prepare, forget everything and just do it. I believe it was Miles Davis who was quoted as saying, learn the instrument, learn the notes, learn the music, then forget all that shit and play. That's exactly what you need to do. In the boxing world, they tell fighters, let your hands go. What does that mean? That means when you get in the boxing ring, you can't think about, I'm going to throw a left hook, then I'm going to throw a right hand, then I'm going to do an uppercut, then I'm going to block the jab, then I'm going to move to the right, then I'm going to pivot step to the left. By the time you think of all that stuff, you done got punched in the face 5 times and the fight's over because you're laying on your back. You don't have time to think. I would tell basketball players the same thing. You can't plan on when you're going to do a move in a game because by the time you think of the move to do, the opportunity to do the move is gone. If you're a man walking around the mall and you're executing what they call day game, going to talk to some girls in the mall, by the time you think of what you're going to say to the girl, the moment you had to talk to the girl is gone because she just walked away because you didn't take advantage when she was looking at you. You don't have time to think about it. You prepare ahead of time, then you just do it. And see, the more information we get access to, the more people get bogged down in thinking about what do I do with this information. And by the time you make a decision, the opportunity to use the information has passed you. And someone who knows less than you has taken advantage because they don't have all those thoughts to go through to figure out what to do. The fewer options you have, usually the faster you move. Paradoxically. This paradox of choice tells us that the more choices, more options we have, the less likely we are to choose anything, the less likely we are to get anything done because we move more slowly because we're filing through all of our options. You want to give yourself fewer options if you want to get more done. This is the reason why I tell people schedule out your day. Use a calendar. Why do you use a calendar? Because if you put something on your calendar from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, this is what I'm going to be doing, returning these phone calls. You are giving yourself no other option other than from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, return these phone calls. There's only one option on the calendar, return these phone calls. So is there an option to check email? No, because that's not what's on the calendar. Is there an option to go take a walk around the block? No, that's not on the calendar. Is there an option to go and reply to text messages? No, that's not on the calendar. There's only one thing on the calendar, return these phone calls. And see, when you have only one option, it's very easy to execute. Now, if that calendar is empty from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, it's just open space, do whatever you want to do. Okay, what do you do with that hour? Whole bunch of bullshit. Anything that gets done? Not really. Because you have all these options. Smart people out there. Yes, you, smart person. Limit your options. You will get more done. This is a discipline. When you limit your options by cutting off possibilities, you increase the likelihood that you will do something rather than thinking about doing something and continually considering your options. This is what most people do. They just consider. They think about it. How often do you tell yourself you've been thinking about something? It's been 3 months, you're still thinking about it. It's a lot of thinking. That's a lot of thinking. The word decision, ladies and gentlemen, comes from the Latin word that literally means, the root word of decision comes from a Latin word that literally means to cut off. That's what decision means, to cut off. Decision, ladies and gentlemen, means you're cutting off every other possibility. I have decided that this is what's happening. Notice this is what's happening. Not these are what's happening. This is what's happening. That symbolizes singularity. This thing, not these things, this thing. Decision. Singular. Easiest way to execute is to give yourself only one possibility of what to do. Therefore, you're not thinking about your choices because you have no choices. See, when you cut off your options, you have no choices. All right, there's the only thing I can do, just this. The smarter you are, the more choices you see yourself as having because you have all this knowledge in your head, because you know so much. And it's not wrong to know things. Okay, I'm not telling you to get dumb just to get dumb. I'm telling you need to be selectively dumb. That's what I'm telling you. Being selectively dumb means you got to know when to stop being so smart and just fucking do what you're supposed to be doing. Execute. And your knowledge slows you down rather than speeds you up when you're allowing it to use you rather than you using it. Your knowledge is something that you use when you need it. It's kind of like having a library in your house. You don't sit there and read every book in the library every day, do you? You would never get anything done. You pull a book off the shelf that you need to pull off the shelf in the midst of the conversation that you are having in the moment. Okay, so I'm not telling you to make yourself dumb on purpose. I'm telling you to make yourself dumb selectively. And when I say dumb, again, I mean that as a metaphor. Cutting yourself off from your own intelligence when necessary. This is a strategic move. Let's recap today's class, which is why smart people still don't execute. Number one, the smarter you are, usually the more you know, and that knowledge disempowers as much as it empowers. Yes, knowledge is power. The problem is power is not useful until it is used. Potential power is just potential power. All right, so you charged up the battery to your computer, but you never take it off the charger. Okay, what's the point of charging the battery? All right, eventually you got to use it for something. Number two, the key to wisdom, which exists on a higher plane of knowledge, is understanding and knowing which knowledge to use and which knowledge to ignore at certain times, in certain contexts, and why you are doing so. That's what knowledge is about. Picking and choosing what smartness you need to apply in different places and at different times. And let me give you a hint, it ain't all of it and it ain't all the time. Number three, being choosy with your intelligence and knowledge is the key to executing and getting things done. You want to get more things done, you got to be picky and choosy with which intelligence to use and putting everything else away, ideally through decision, meaning picking one piece of information, one piece of knowledge to use at different times and putting everything else on the shelf until it's time for the next job when you might need to use something else. That's how you are able to get more things done. All that said, everybody, you want to talk about making decisions, you want to talk about getting more things done, getting them done faster, and holding yourself to a certain standard of accountability and performance, good. Because in Work on Your Game University, that's exactly what I coach people on. So you want me to be your coach to help you get this where it needs to go right now, today, along with what I just talked about here and everything else you heard me talk about and everything you haven't heard me talk about, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Links in the description. Let's get to work. Work on your game. Dre all